The Necromancer, Part 3, Stone and Bone. And we're going to be making our own pigment powders today too, using these. Let's hook our brushes around that. We've got the rest of this beautiful bust for our Necromancer that she's going to be sitting upon when raising the dead of her commanded army. But we're going to be focusing on stone and bone today. So, using a dry palette. Now you can use anything as far as a dry palette goes. You can be using a paper plate, a paper towel, a rolled up old t-shirt, anything that you can get to use as a dry palette. Reason why we want to use a dry palette, the form and technique that we use is so that the paint isn't too wet. You can add just a touch of moisture to your paint, but you don't want it overly saturated as we usually would have it when painting our miniatures. Those of you who are very new to this and you have no idea what dry brushing is, you simply just take your brush and you're going to load it with paint. Just load it. You're probably going to be at first a little scared because you're going to see that a lot of paint is going to be wasted, quotations. Then you're going to take what loaded paint you have on your brush and you're going to rub out majority of the paint, okay? And then you'll take this brush and you'll dry brush, as the term is used, over the sections that you're dry brushing. And what it does, it leaves bits of pigment left behind, only painting the raised surfaces. And that is the definition and the process when in miniature painting of dry brushing. Alright, see, no, that was done. That doesn't take too much time to do that. Dry brushing is very quick, you know. It doesn't take long before putting paint down, dry brushing, get some more paint, put it down, so back and forth, back and forth. It dries very, very quickly, so it doesn't take much time. So, now we got that. Now we're going to move on to our wash, our black wash. The way you apply it is you'll take this and you will run it through the miniature and it will sink into all the crevices and all the small detailed parts inside the raised surfaces. And you can apply a very thick coat like this, grab a dry brush, and you can just come in and start wiping some of that away. Alright, so after applying all that and going through adding some touch-up dry brushing, and now we're going to move on to the highlights. And the first highlight we're going to be using is Sky Gray. Okay? And then I'm actually going to grab my brown wash that has a bit of burnt sienna and umber. Okay? And I'm going to throw that here next to it. Not too much, depending on the ratio you're wanting. And I'm going to come here, load my brush, scrape majority of it off on a paper towel, you know, whichever. And then with that bit of low pigment that we have, I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to barely dip it. Okay, just barely dip that onto my brush here. Okay, and then I'm going to come to my paper towel or your dry palette here, and you're going to just barely tap it, just barely tap it to get the excess flow off your brush. And then you're going to come through and you're going to slowly come across the edges of where you want your light to be. And we're just barely hitting those raised surfaces. Cold white and our black leather now. Now, I'm going to follow, like we did last time. I'm going to continue dry brushing, but I'm going very lightly. I still want to have a little bit of our brownish gray here that we put down, showing through some of these spots, but not too much. Again, I want to go over it, but not to the point where it covers up all of our work. Now that our dry brushing is completely finished, we're going to move on to making your own pigment powders. And you can purchase pigment powders through various companies such as Vallejo, AK-47, Citadel, so on and so forth. But they can be a bit expensive. And there is a cheaper alternative, using a pastel. With pastels, it's very cheap and you can get them almost anywhere, from your hobby stores to a dollar store, and coming in a larger range of colors. And I'm going to show you how you can take this and make your own pigment powders for your miniature tabletop games. Pastels, chalk-like substance. It's pigment rich, and applied down, we can actually create our own pigment colors. Basically, all you need. It is the exact same thing, same material that we used in actual pigment colors that we would get from any other painting company. And the way we're going to do it is you're going to get a knife, and please be mindful, okay? These, be very, very mindful. These things are sharp. And if you're too young to have this, please get your guardian or parent or somebody who knows how to handle a blade to help you with this. If you are of age, then it's very simple. I'm going to choke up on the blade itself, where I can have full control of my blade here. And you want to put this down on like a dry palette, a paper plate, something, because it will get a little dusty. So all you're going to do is we're going to start with our gray here, okay? And I'm just going to take my blade here, and I'm just going to, on my dry palette, start scraping off a little bit of a portion. There is our pigment powder. Alright, you're going to grab your dry brush or a smaller brush or any brush you want to use for this, and you're just going to simply put that brush in there just like you would dry brushing. I'm just going to load the brush, wipe off the excess on my dry palette, or if you have a paper towel nearby, just wipe it off there, okay? And then you're going to pick the spots you want it, and you're going to dry brush and apply that color of the pigment, okay? Now you don't necessarily have to wipe off excess. You can wipe off the excess and continue building up, or you can just load the brush fully and you can come to a section and really load it down, just like that, okay? Just like that. Say that? It's just your preference, how thick you want this to be, how light you want it to be, so on and so forth. Alright, we're going to carry on with this first portion. I'm going to speed this up before we start moving on to the rest of our colors here, okay? Okay, so I got a bit of this bluish purple violet, and I'm going to start adding this here and there just like we did before, adding some color for the moonlight, brushing it on, wiping it off a couple places, hitting our highlights with it, so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm just going to speed through this process too. Now, as you can see, we're starting to get somewhere. You can see as applying on and off, wiping away, putting some more down, thick and thin, going back and forth, you can start seeing the small crevices where the light is going to be coming through. And again, you can go through and take away and add as much as your heart's content until you're happy with your end result. Now, we're not quite done yet. I still have one more highlight layer I want to put on before we seal this. So how we seal it is pretty cool, because it's really simple. All you need is a little dropper bottle, or in this case I have a little spray bottle, just brings out some mist of water. And it just has some tap water put in here, okay? I'm going to take this matte varnish here, and I'm going to put it into this spray bottle. Give it a good shake. And now you got some sealant. And all we got to do is that right there. Now, as soon as this dries, all of your work that you have done will be there. Now, while it's still wet, if you want to, while it's still wet, you can go back to your pigment powders that you're making, okay? And you can go ahead and say, we'll grab some more of this color right here, okay? While this is still wet, and then you can grab your pigment, and while it's wet, you can go through and start adding some more. It will still seal, and it will still leave that color behind, and you can still add and take away just like we did before while it was dry. Like right in here, for example, how pigmented that is, how very colorful that is. I'm going to clean my brush off over here on my paper towel. I'm just going to get it real clean. I'm just going to go through like I would dry brush and remove the excess from the raised surfaces right there. Go through, I'm going to clean up this a little bit. Okay, and here we go. This is the end result after the pigment has been sealed in and what we just applied. I think that right there is exactly what I'm looking for as far as my lights and shadows go for the end result of this base. And that's how you can use pastels to make your own pigment powders. Now, you don't necessarily have to use, a matte varnish for your sealant. You can use something like a PVA glue, like Elmer's glue, and get it watered down for most of your base terrain. I just like using the matte varnish because it kind of seals all the dry brushing we done previously. But now you don't have to spend your hard-earned dollars on big corporated pigment powders when you can just simply buy a cheap pack of pastels and make it your own. Let's move on to the bones. We're going to do a very simple bone paint job here. I know there's a lot of bone recipes out there, like 100 maybe. And I'm going to give you another one, so make that 101. But this one's probably going to be very quick and easy. So right here, I have ivory from Vallejo. Now, I don't know how many of you have this. I know when Vallejo changed their recipe from this ivory, it used to be, or at least what I have in my hand right now, is a yellowish white, almost sunny skin tone, but a little bit more to the white side than yellow. However, their new recipe for ivory is more of a stark white. As you can see the difference between the two right here. So if you have this, awesome. If not, get whatever you want. I mean, it's your miniature, it's your world. Paint what you like. This is what I prefer using when I'm doing bone this way. Because all I'm going to do is I have my little mixer trash brush here. I'm not going to get anything too important. I'm just going to put a little bit of water from my rinsing cup right over there, thin it down just a bit, and I'm just going to start slathering on a base coat. Alright, now we've got our base coat down of that ivory, we're going to go ahead and start doing second phase, which is my brown wash that I used a while ago for our base here. This is just a dark sienna and burnt umber mixture with some flow aid. It's a simple homemade wash. Just gonna throw a little bit of that down, grab my trash brush, pick some of that up, pick just a little bit off of my paper towel, and usually right where I know the darkest spots would be in the shadows. I mean, however, he just got woken up. He had a bad day a long time ago, and our lovely Necromancer is telling him that he did such a good job that he's to come back so he can do it all over again. But he's not looking his Sunday best anymore, so we're gonna have to dirty him up from the earth which he laid. We're just gonna go through, and I'm just gonna throw this wash, kind of thick, kind of thin, here and there. Do multiple passes. It's all wet. I'm just streaking and griming and just kind of playing around and moving it where I want, tinting it here and there, darkening here and there as it slowly dries. And then once I get to a good position where I'm pretty happy with, I'll leave it be and let it dry completely. I will take my dry brush I have right here, and I'm just going to come in because I have a little bit of water left on. It's a little damp. It's not wet, it's just a little damp. I'm just going to go through and dry brush, a couple highlights, doing a Van Brandt style highlighting, kind of like that right there. Dark back there, light right here. Take a little bit more off right there. Okay, so I'm just gonna be impatient, and I'm just gonna grab my heat gun real quick. Okay, nice and dry. Now I'm just gonna do it again. Grab my trash brush, come over here into the darker spots. I'm really going to be a little bit more focused this time. Kind of following that pattern, that random pattern that was made of lights and darks. I'm just going to go through and kind of help enhance those a bit. Because you don't want to be too precise when it comes to certain things. It's like nature. Nature is beautiful because of how random it is. It's not planned. It just happens. Alright, let me go ahead and dry brush this off again a little bit off the face. I'm just pulling down. Pulling down, pulling down, pulling down. There we go. Alright, heat gun again, because I'm impatient. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab that, there it is, that ivory I showed you that they remade, that stark white ivory. We can go ahead and put a little bit down on our dry palette that we've been using. Okay. Grab my trash brush here. Get a little bit of water right there, just a drop of water. And go ahead and mix that up. Like so. Okay. And I'm going to grab our brown wash that we have made. I'm just going to put a single drop in there. We're going to mix that in. Because now I'm going to go do is we're going to highlight this a little bit. I can come through here and I can just pull it down, hit the ray surfaces, hit up here on top of the head a little bit with it. A little more. Do the same thing. There we go. I'm just going through and making sure everything looks the way I want it to. I think we'll do it. And that's pretty much how you do bone. Fast, easy. It took maybe 10 minutes tops to do all that, and it turned out to look really good. I mean, you have a lot of different textures within the skull, cracks that the wash has built up to make it look more natural, some dirt and grime, some highlights, stark white ivory, that sort of thing. Alright, so let's go ahead and put his head back onto the base. There we go. That's pretty much it. Stone and bones. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next segment. Hello, adventurers. Hey, thanks for staying to the very end and watching the video. If you liked it, leave a like down there for me. And if you're an adventurer or miniature painter who wants to join the guild, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Once you do, you can hit the notification bell. I'll let you know what campaigns and miniature paintings we're going to be tackling next. And then you can share faster with other adventurer miniature painters just like yourself. After all, we can always use more members here in the guild. And if there's anything you want me to see built or painted or have any questions, please leave those comments down there below for me. And as always, I'll see you back at the guild. Back to painting. Alright, now come on, get on there.